Hello, and welcome to On the Irregular with Java Beret, a podcast where I chat to women from all walks of life about their own unique creative journey, how they got here, how their story has shaped their creative work, what they've learned, what has helped them, and where they plan to go from here. It's an irregular journey for so many of us, and I am delighted to offer a platform to share these fascinating stories and wells of wisdom. This week, I'm talking to the prolific artist and graphic designer Lela Harris. We talked about Lela's childhood days in Manchester, sat on her back step writing her memoir on a typewriter, the acts of generosity that have helped guide her creativity, and the serendipitous snowboarding accident that opened up a staggering talent for portraiture she never knew she had. At the time we recorded this, Lela mentioned that she had a very secret and very exciting announcement coming in October. Perfectly timed with this podcast, Lela has just revealed that earlier in the year, Folio Press reached out to her to design and illustrate the new edition of Alice Walker's The Colour Purple. Congratulations, Lela, you are one of a kind. Welcome to episode 8 with Lela Harris. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me and share your story, because I've loved, because I loved your and I love your graphic design work, and so I initially kind of was drawn in through that, and then the whole other project, Not and Gather, your other account where you've been exploring other creative sides, that's been a whole journey to witness. It's been really lovely, and that you sent me a bit of an excerpt of your life story by email, and it was so gorgeous to read, and I'd completely forgotten about, I don't want to get ahead of myself, but the skiing accident where you like, that feels like quite a pivotal moment, really,
the fateful holiday.
so yeah, no, I'm really interested, because I've been chatting to a few different women the last couple of weeks, and everybody's got their own completely unique and perfect story, and it's so interesting hearing people kind of looking back and dissecting all the different steps and what they didn't realize at the time has kind of led to where they are and where they're going, and it's not like the journey has ended, it's ongoing, and the exploring, so it's so fascinating and it's so inspiring, and I love hearing other people's stories, and the more higgledy-piggledy the better, really.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose most people's must be really crazy higgledy-piggledy if they're kind of creative.
Exactly.
I've loved listening to your stories when you do your blog and stuff, when you share like what's been going on in your life as well. It's really interesting.
Thank you. Yeah, because I kind of think that sometimes we're under this impression that other people have it sorted out right from the beginning, and it's just easy, like an easy ride, and you just know what to do and you make all the right choices and the right decisions, when actually I think most of the time a lot of it is kind of accident and chance and being a bit lost and making one decision that doesn't quite work out, but then in some way it kind of works out because you ended up doing something else, and I think it's comforting. I think it's really comforting, and also that can come about later in life, because I think I was really under the impression as a teenager that I had to have made it by like age 22.
Well, my teenage daughter at the minute is currently totally frazzled and a bit anxious because she's picked her options and she keeps saying, all my friends know exactly what they want to do and I don't. Yeah. And I was just like, well, you're not supposed to. You're like 13, just do what makes you happy.
That's the mad thing, isn't it? Having to choose such a, and it feels so all or nothing, like that's it, that's going to decide your life. And if you make the wrong decision, then then that's it, and it's over, and you can't. And I think, because I think in my head, like past 30, there's just no life. You just kind of get old and die.
But there's loads. It's like, I reckon, like my life only got better when I turned 30. It's like,
absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. So if you would like to, I would really love it if you could just tell me and the listeners, who I'm sure are going to love to hear about you, from the beginning. Take your time, and I really welcome tangents. It doesn't have to be linear, just I'd love to hear a bit about your background. I know that you're from Manchester, so if you would like to start there.
It's a very higgledy-piggledy, like fractured story. It was very cathartic getting it out when I emailed you.
Yeah. Good.
So yeah, I'm from Manchester, like born and bred Mancunian. Kind of grew up on the mean streets of like Moss Side and Rusholme. Kind of like it was like difficult beginnings because it was difficult at home. My mum was like an alcoholic and with mental health problems, so like being at home wasn't great. But at the same time, I have amazing siblings who kind of shielded me from the worst of that. But I kind of think in a weird way, it made me like really strangely optimistic. I know that sounds really weird because it was like pretty grim now looking back at it, but it did help me to see that it doesn't have to always be like this. You can make choices for it not to be like that, because growing up there was a history of alcoholism in our family, and depression and various things, and I think my creative bubble emerged then and kind of saved me in a way. So a lot of drawing.
So do you feel like, do you think that you kind of like found a world that you were able to go into that gave you a perception that you were that the reality that you were living in at home didn't need to be the reality that you would grow into as you grow older? Is like what gave you that optimism? Was there an outside influence that you could see that you could work?
I think subconsciously I created the bubble just because it was pretty grim. And it's only looking back now as I'm older I realise, but many children of alcoholics do the same thing because it's like a survival instinct. And I was so like, I think I thought much like my daughter that I was a character in a book because I used to love reading. So I could go off in a world, just I spend like the whole day at the library and stuff like that, or get a book and just hide out somewhere with it, and it would take me off into another world. And plus I had like, me and my siblings all have a really like terrible sense of humour, so when things are really bad we tend to laugh at it. So if somebody falls over or we used to get really badly shouted at, we just would burst into laughter, which would make it worse, but we used to think it was hilarious because what else could you do? So I think so that has helped. And I was really fortunate because I always had really good friends from a good young age. So I'm still like best friends with friends I just made at secondary school, and from like year one, and I'm still best friends with them now, and they all had really lovely families. So it was good to see that it doesn't have to be like it was in my house, but neither did it make me feel alone. Like they were there if I wanted to talk to them, but equally I could escape into their houses if I wanted to as well.
Yeah. Oh, that's wonderful. I guess community, isn't it?
Yeah, and teachers, some really lovely teachers along the way that like just supportive in a quiet way, not necessarily like dragging in social services or anything like that, but just there like if you needed to speak to them, or just engaging you in a way. Like my English teacher was really good, like we had quite boring subjects to cover, but he was just like a really nice bloke, and I found him really interesting. And then college, it was more like there were really interesting teachers, but there were also real people, so you could see that you could have a job in that kind of like in something that you enjoyed, so that was good as well.
Wow, that sounds incredibly fortunate that you had that support system around you, both at school and like you say, like with your friends. And I mean, and that's kind of something that always also really drew me to Manchester, and what made me stay there for so long was that I found that community quite easily. It felt like a really kind of livable city, that people people know the people on your street, and the people around you, and it's quite, I mean, an easy comparison is London, where I'd lived for a few years when I was younger, and it felt very different. Whereas it felt like in Manchester there's almost kind of like pockets of villages in a way.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, totally. Yeah, because we moved about quite a bit, but there was always Mancunians are really friendly, so there's always someone to chat to, isn't there?
Exactly.
And something to do. So yeah, I mean, I as a kid, I never thought I was going to leave Manchester. And it was only till I got older when we started, me and my husband, well, we weren't married then, but started doing more outdoor. He's always been quite outdoorsy, but I started doing more outdoorsy stuff, which I hadn't done since I was at secondary school, because at secondary school, we were really fortunate in that it wasn't a brilliant school. However, me and my friends, there's about 10 of us, were like the utter nerds. Like, no one could speak to us. We were so nerdy. We were like properly sidelined on the bench. But because of that, we were the only ones that signed up to outdoor pursuits on a Wednesday afternoon. Oh. So yes, we were, gorge walking, hill walking, sailing, kayaking. And for an inner city kid, that was like a dream come true. Like, it was all paid for, so there was no barrier to go in.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, so that gave me the taste for the outdoors, and then got back into it as I got older, which spurred on our desire to move. Eventually.
I know, because you're in beautiful Kendal now, aren't you?
Yeah, and that is even friendlier than Manchester. I know so many people. Like, within a week of living here, I had like random people in coffee shops saying hello to me.
That's lovely. That's really lovely. I do love the north. I do really love the north. And so when you went to high school, because you said that you did really, I mean, you've just said now that also you were a complete nerd, like you did quite well academically, that was... Yeah. So was that a constant kind of, also like you were saying about your creativity, that was something to focus on?
It was a hard juggle between the two, actually, because during my downtime, I was quite creative. Like, I used to spend hours and hours designing like my own fonts, which I totally forgot about until recently. That's what I know. It was really weird. I decided I was going to write a novel with my teenage angst when I was 16, and had saved up for a little typewriter. That failed fairly quickly.
I love that. That's so romantic. 16-year-old you with a typewriter
on the back doorstep, like in the backyard in Manchester with no flowers. Yeah, typing. Oh, woe is me. So that was quite funny.
Oh my goodness, amazing.
So I was creative outside of school, but in school I got pushed to do all the boring subjects because, we were just about to join the European Union, and everyone was just like, you're not going to get a job if you don't do a language. If you don't do business studies, you're not going to do a job. Because my mum had never worked and always been on benefits, I was just like, I'm just so getting a job. So I just towed the line and did all the boring subjects, which wasn't necessarily a bad thing. Came out with some good GCSEs, went to college, gave me the opportunity to go to university. So, yeah.
Wow. And that's, like you said, you were the first person in your family to go to university.
Yeah. Nuts. Yeah. Like, out of several generations of people to go, and it was me that, the little skinny brown kid went off to uni. Got a 2-1 in the end, juggling a job, buying a house.
Wow. So because you did sociology?
Yeah.
Right, okay. And then, so what, this is a really silly question, what is sociology?
Even I can't even tell you now, it's so long ago. Basically, it's more like the study of society in its broadest sense, but you touch on things like criminology, the understanding of knowledge, like how knowledge is perceived by other people and what's true and what's not true, how societies can work together. Okay. But also like drilling down, and we, to things like studying how air traffic controllers work in certain settings.
Wow, that's specific.
Yeah, really specific. So it can be broad and it could be really narrow, the focus. We did statistics as well while we were in there. It was just a really good opportunity to learn how to learn. That's what I got out of it, I think.
Okay. That's a really good takeaway. That's really interesting. And so, and then did you study in Manchester then?
Yeah, I went to Manmet. And bizarrely, after, we're jumping ahead now, like 15 years, when I got my first little bit of creative space for myself, it turns out that it was 2 lecturers from my old sociology course that had opened a deli in Levenshulme. And I'd gone in to say, oh, if you need any help with any design work, and they were like, didn't we teach you?
No way.
And they give me my first proper start as an independent businesswoman. So that sociology course did pay off.
Pay off in the end. Oh, I love when things come full circle in the most unexpected, unpredictable way. Oh, that's wonderful. Out of interest, what was the deli called?
It was called Pod Deli in Levenshulme, run by Karen.
Karen
and Terry. Sadly, Terry passed away a couple of years ago, so that is really sad. But he was such, like, both of them, just really lovely, like, supportive people. And, you know, after I'd done the logo for them, Terry was like, where are you working? I'm just like, well, just at home, like an afternoon a week. He's like, well, you can have that little tiny desk in the corner of my office if you need somewhere to stay, you know, to work. And he let me have that little tiny desk for like 2 years rent free.
Oh, that's so generous.
Yeah, really generous. Gave me the old post office cupboard that I've still got. That's got all my greeting cards in for my doodle of business.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so yeah.
Oh, that's so gorgeous. I feel like those acts of generosity can really help you along your path, can't they? Like,
oh, absolutely. I think that's why I go out of my way to try and plant those little seeds when I can. You know, like somebody asks for, you know, help from another business. Like lots of businesses are like, oh no, I'm not helping you. But I'd be like, you know, it goes round in circles, and lots of people have helped me along the way. So,
well, like you've done that with me. You've been incredibly generous with your time, because I asked you about some advice because I was investing in a printer and I wanted to buy a printer. And so I was like, and I felt so awkward asking you, because I was thinking, you know, this is your business and you know, and then we don't really know each other, so I felt like I was really going out on a limb asking you, and you were so lovely and so gracious and easy. Yeah, of course, give me loads of information, and then at the end we're like, and if you ever need any tips or you got any problems, just get in touch. I was like completely floored. You know, everybody's busy, you know, we're all busy, we've all, you know, stuff, but like the fact that you were so just generous and kind and open and easy about it really was one of the you know, moments of generosity that, same as you, I kind of feel like, well, I would really love to be able to, where I can.
Yeah, exactly, because you've got to have boundaries as well, haven't you, which I'm learning now as I get older. Like, you couldn't, like, those things don't cost you anything, but other things cost you something, and they can eat away at you, don't they? So yeah, it's only now as I get a bit older, like, actually sometimes it's okay to say no, sometimes, just for the fact of saying no.
Yeah, exactly. So okay, so going back to Manchester, so you said that you met your partner George, is it, when you were 17?
Yes, yeah, we met at the Ritz. Remember the Ritz, the band before the Ritz? Yeah, Monday night at the Ritz. Had my table on the left-hand side. They were the good years. So yeah, we met at the Ritz.
Is the Ritz even open anymore?
No, I don't think it is. I went to a reunion there. Oh God, when was it? 10 years ago. I've never felt so old in my life. And somebody was sat in my table where I used to always sit, and I had to shuffle to the other side, little sad face.
For anyone who doesn't know, well, the Ritz is like a kind of old club in Manchester. And it's a bit scuzzy, but and brilliant, and not at all like the hotel, the Ritz.
Oh no, sticky carpets, watered down beer. Yeah.
Oh wow. So okay, so where are we at? So you finished your sociology degree, and what were you thinking ahead? What were your options?
Well, so we finished sociology, that's 2000, oh God, I can't remember, maybe 2001. And during the time we were at uni, we both worked really hard, me and my husband. We only got married maybe 6 or 7 years ago now, I can't remember. But we wanted to buy a house. And back then, you could buy houses pretty cheaply. So we scrimped and saved for a deposit, just as a dream rather than maybe it's possible. After being turned down for several mortgages. So George was a postman at the time, and I was at uni but working part-time as in Asda. And yeah, so we bought a house in Levenshulme for £29,000. So
yeah, those were
was,
the days. Wow,
yeah,
20,000.
yeah,
That's a good investment because
it was. Yeah, everyone thought we were mad because we were obviously really young. They were like, "What are you doing? You might not even want to stay together." I'm like, just think of it as renting a house together.
Yeah,
we can always sell it if things don't work out. Which has been our approach to most things. So when I finished my degree, it was, we had the mortgage to pay. It wasn't massive, but it was still like a commitment. So I was just thinking, I need a job, but I don't want to work in an office and wear a suit. So I better get thinking. So I just sent off loads of CVs and cheeky letters to like, I think actually the first job out there was, do you remember Granada Studios?
Yeah.
In Manchester. So I sent a raft of letters to them to say I was really good at making cups of tea. I was good at research, nice to have around, etc., etc. And one day somebody called me up and said they had a role as a runner. So I got a couple of jobs as a runner there on a quiz show. Do you remember the Enemy Within, where you had to guess who was lying?
Oh no, I don't. I've never been a big game show fan. I'm terrible.
No, it's all right. Yeah, so it was a bit.
Is that what you were on? Was that what you were running on?
Yeah, I was running on that, ironing like clothes and like running cups of teas, and like the director saying, right, I'm just going to call you runner 1, number 2, and number 3 because I can't be bothered to learn your names. And I was like, maybe this is not the industry I want to work in.
It's a harsh, cruel industry. It really, really. Yeah.
But it was a bit grim. I wasn't there long, and then when I was kind of also working as a waitress at Grinch in Manchester as well at the same time.
Yeah.
And then I managed to get another job as a researcher on a Coronation Street episode, so that was quite good.
A researcher? What's a researcher entail?
Well, that was for like an anniversary edition. I don't know if it was like the 30th or something, 30-year anniversary. But I had to basically watch hours and hours and hours of Coronation Street to pick out the best clips and write down the time codes from the videos.
Okay. I love finding out about all these jobs that you kind of don't know what the actual, what the minutiae of that job is. That's so interesting to find out. Of course, somebody has to go through all of the episodes, and in that case, it was you.
It was me. So that was good for a bit, and then I thought, I need to get something a bit more serious now, and had a bit of time. So it was quite fractious this time because I just did lots of little bitty jobs. So the next job was as an arts marketing assistant for Arts About Manchester. I don't know if you remember them.
Yeah.
And that was off another letter that I'd sent out just to say I was really good at making cups of tea.
That really got you far in life.
It really did. Like, my mum had instilled some very good brew making skills in me. So it did get me far. So I worked there for about a year, actually. Really enjoyed that. Lots of like compiling lists of events, doing market research into or like audience participation and engagement. And they just really looked after me, showed me the ropes. It was really good. And then after that, I managed to get on the arts mentorship, like the internship for a year.
Yeah.
And that just blew my mind because although I'd worked in the arts marketing job, I'd never I'd never been to the theatre before or, seen a dance performance before. And so I basically spent a year paid, like good bursary. I think it was about £10,000, which was quite a good wage back then.
Yeah.
Just traveling the country, visiting theatres and having placements in different settings. So we covered, 4-week placement in finance, marketing, being a producer, ticketing. Yeah, it was just awesome, absolutely amazing, and it was specifically for Black and Asian and minority ethnic groups.
Yeah.
So it was great.
What a fantastic initiative! Like,
Yeah,
that's the education that you need in a way, isn't it?
like, yeah,
if you know that you want to get into the arts, to be able to experience it in all those different areas, like you say, like marketing, finance, and just to get a broader idea of like what's out there.
yeah.
Wow. Oh gosh.
And at the end of that, I was really lucky because my placement was at the Royal Exchange, and I just had I just felt like like an arty grown up for the first time. Like, oh my God, like I can do this. Like, you know,
Royal Exchange is also a very grown up theatre, isn't it?
Yeah. And I got to call myself an assistant producer and worked in marketing for a bit, so it was great. Yeah, I met some really good friends that I'm still friends with now. That really set me up to thinking that I could do this as a career. I didn't have to wear a suit. I got to think creatively, and I felt passionate about it. So the first time I was really into something, and so then off the back of that, there was a job as a cultural administration assistant at Manchester City Council in their cultural regeneration scheme. So you remember when there was all that new Labour money floating around for regen? That was basically the City Council's cultural and arts response to that. And I applied, not thinking I'd get it. And it turns out there was 141 people that applied for that job. And I got it in my little tweed suit.
Wow!
Congratulations
for me. That's amazing.
A little flare tweed suit. Yeah, when they told me, they were like, you know, there was 141 applicants. I was just like, no, what? So yeah, that was great. And then was there for about 7 years, got promoted after about 2 years to be the arts officer for East Manchester.
Wow, and so what were you doing then? So you creating opportunities for young people to get into creative projects?
Young people, but basically the whole of East Manchester, my remit was to spend money that was European funding money to culturally engage communities with the main aim of improving their employment prospects, their educational prospects, and their quality of life. So it's quite a broad remit. And basically, I was free to do whatever I wanted. So having never practiced art myself, so people used to say, you know, are you an artist or are you an actor? You know, you're like, so it's like, no, I'm just a creative thinker. Like, if you think of me as Cilla Black of the creative world, I can connect people, the dots. So I'd be like, oh, there's that really good textile artist who I could get to work with this really good creative writer. And then we could create this amazing project, you know, that engages, like, it's intergenerational. We've got older people and younger people weaving the stories together. So I could think like that. So that's what I used to do. Set up a stand-up comedy course that was featured in The Guardian. Just did nice things for nice people who deserved it, but who didn't think that they deserved it. So it was tricky, maybe sometimes getting the numbers from my target audience, just because they didn't, generational deprivation and low expectations, and it's hard taking that step in the door to join a stand-up comedy class or an art class or a cooking class. So yeah.
Gosh, wow. So what ended, I mean, that sounds like such an incredibly fulfilling and creative job. Like you say, kind of coming up with all these different ideas and projects, but also like bringing people through the door, and it feels like it could be quite fulfilling on so many different levels. And seeing people, I guess then seeing people in those situations and growing and changing and discovering things within themselves, that must have been quite something. So what made you move on from there then?
I think because I've been there for like 7 years, I kind of thought, well, actually there was two things. I was running out of ideas because I didn't want to just churn the same thing out every year. Like, obviously some things worked really well, so that was worth doing. But also I'd gone part-time because I had my daughter, so I'd gone back to work part-time, and there was kind of like an expectation to fit 5 days work into 2.5 days, so the workload was quite a lot.
Yeah.
And it got a bit fractured because I was doing a job share, so it was like handing it over, you know, midway through projects and stuff like that, so that was a bit to get your head round. And plus I'd already kind of towards the end, because maybe after about 2 years in that job, I'd created this amazing program, but there was not enough money because I'd spent it all on other artists to deliver the projects, to advertise the projects.
Right.
So I'd taken myself off to night school to do an A-level graphic design course, which then gave me a taste for maybe I could do something else. Maybe I don't have to do this, you know. And one of my
you must have you must have had a lot of energy to be, you know, really full on job, and then I'll just take myself off to night school as well.
It was only like 1 day a week. It was, and I remembered how much I enjoyed doing art. I don't know how I'd remembered, because for ages I used to moan to George, like, why have I got no hobbies? Like, we had a dog, we did a lot of dog walking, but I just watched the telly, read, and dog walk, and I just felt dissatisfied. So when I signed up for this course, I was like, oh yeah, like, you know, you forget things, don't you, what you enjoy when you're busy being an adult.
Completely. So okay, so did you start creating then the advertising material for for the project?
Yeah, so I started designing all the posters and stuff like that. Really enjoyed it. And then, funnily enough, people in other teams would then, within my department, be like, Lady, could you just design, you know, X, Y, and Z, and could you just do this? And then people outside of work would like ask me to do a leaflet and like pay me to do it. So then that's kind of the inklings of like thinking, oh, I could do something else than this job. And then a colleague of mine left to set up his own sports charity. John, another one of my kind of like people in my life that has planted seeds of, yeah, you could just be my graphic designer, couldn't you? And I was like, what? Like, I'm not I literally been to night school at the local college. I am not a graphic designer. But he was like, you're doing it already. You don't have to go to London or some big agency.
Yeah, you're doing it. Yeah.
Yeah. And so he just gave me a really good job, 3 days a week as his graphic designer for his sports charity.
Wow.
And gave me the space to learn on the job as well, which was amazing.
That is so fantastic. Wow.
I'm so lucky. I'm like, thinking back, I'm like, there's a lot of serendipity here and like just a lot of luck.
I think it's a lot of luck. It's also, of course, luck comes into it, but it's also a lot of you. You know, I think from little that I know about you, but also talking to you, you're very open and also you're very talented. You know, and people can see that, and you know, and of course want to employ you. You know, to put it plainly, really. So that's I'm not surprised that happened.
Yeah. It was a good time. Yeah, I feel like I'm really grateful for that opportunity, and he always cheered me on. You know, even like when my friend asked me to do a wedding stationery, and I thought then Doodle Love was dreamed up accidentally. He was really supportive, like let me bring my orders into work and to post at the local post office, and gave me time off when I needed to when things were busy. So yeah, he was a good boss. Yeah.
Well, so you started doing more freelance projects, and I guess it must have grown.
Yes, it went from like an afternoon a week when I was at the deli, just, you know, designing greeting cards. I think the first thing I sold was a wedding like invite design, but it was just a PDF that customers would download on Etsy.
Yeah. And
I sold one of those, like a set that the customer would like print off themselves and fill in for like £15. And like I made one sale in like 8 weeks, and I was absolutely over the moon.
I know that feeling.
Yeah, it's just amazing, isn't it? Somebody like believes in what you're doing and just like just takes that little, that little risk that means the world to you, but maybe not as much to them, but that's okay.
Yeah, because you feel chosen. It's like they chose my piece of whatever, my drawing, they could, and also I guess for weddings as well, it feels quite special, doesn't it? There's somebody's that you've created for.
Definitely.
Yeah, for them.
So I did quite a lot of weddings for a while, actually. Got quite good at that, sold quite a lot. I was in a couple of magazines, so that was quite good. But then the wedding customers were like, "Oh, we really love your stuff, but actually, do you do anything else?" And that was my first inkling that actually, when you set up a business, it's good to like put your eggs in different baskets. So you've got a customer coming back to you who wants something else,
Yeah.
So if it's not there, then they're not going to be able to pursue that customer relationship with you. So then I just started doing like greeting cards, which then turned into art prints, which turned into year planners and calendars. And it's just, year on year, from very cold market stalls in Manchester and selling like 2 cards a week on Etsy.
Yeah.
To now like a really, really successful business. So yeah, really fortunate.
That's fantastic. It's so true what you're saying about kind of, you do have to kind of broaden, because I've found that because I guess I think possibly it's easy to take for granted that people will just know that, oh yeah, I can do that, or I could do that. But of course people aren't going to know that you can do something other than, like you say, wedding invites. And like I've had people that have come back to me who've maybe asked for a commission for a partner, and they like the style in which I've drawn something, and then they've come back and they've said, I don't know if this is a mad question, but would you consider doing a logo for my business? Yeah, of course I'll advertise that. So it's that kind of like keeping aware of what other what people might be wanting and what be needing, which is is a big job. It can take a while, can't it, to kind of put it on your website, put it on your Instagram.
And I suppose it has to grow organically. Like with your work, I was initially drawn to your kind of amazing vintage creations, like curating all these wonderful pieces. And then I discovered you were amazing, like illustrations and artwork. And now, you've got your candles and like your cutlery and your glassware.
I don't really have a niche, do I?
No, but don't have a niche. I don't think you should. That is what I'm saying. I think actually successful businesses and happy people don't have a niche. They grow organically. And I think if you put yourself in a niche, you're kind of boxing yourself off to opportunities. So I think it's good to just do what you enjoy doing rather than what people expect you to do, I think.
Yeah, that's what I'm kind of going with, really, and that's partly what this podcast is as well.
Exactly.
It's like, why am I doing a podcast for what? Like, simply because I love talking to people and hearing people's stories. So it's completely self-indulgent.
Yeah, that's good.
And hopefully someone, other people will find it interesting and of some use.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. So. Okay, so because I love your calendar. We've got one of your calendars in our kitchen. We've got one of your wall planners in our workroom. I really love your graphic design. And then it's funny because I was just looking, because you then created another account, Not and Gather, which was kind of like a more personal account, wasn't it? Of your
definitely.
What's it called? The punch.
Punch needle. Yeah, that's what I started with, really. Yeah.
And I had completely forgotten that that's how it started. And I had to look through, like, went right back to the beginning of your photos on there, and they're so beautiful. And they're almost kind of because they're very similar to your landscapes. The
graphic ones.
Yeah, and the shapes and the tones and the colours, and it's so lovely looking back and seeing the kind of the changes in styles, and then going on to painting landscapes. And I don't want to get ahead of you, because I really want you to tell us. But it was lovely to kind of revisit, and because what you're doing now is quite different,
Totally different. I told you I just make it up as I go along. I've just got no idea what I'm doing.
But my God, are you good at it? Jesus. So Doodle Love Designs is going amazingly well.
Yeah.
And so you decide to start kind of exploring other aspects of your creativity.
Yeah, I've got like a creative itch that like was sated for doodle love like for quite a long time, and I think once it became well established and I knew what I was doing on a day-to-day basis, then I didn't have to do all those really cold market stalls anymore. I was like, what else could I do? And then my mother-in-law knits and crochets a lot, and she taught me how to crochet, and then I've just got addicted to Molly Makes magazine. And just started, teaching myself how to knit and stuff like that. And then discovered punch needle, I think on, must have been on Instagram, because I must have been just on there anyway, posting my just knitting things that I'd made, like a little cardigan and stuff like that. And then just became totally addicted. And I think it's when punch needle kind of like kicked off in this country as well. And then I just had like loads of people following me, through the textile stuff.
That's a whole world, isn't it?
It's massive, isn't it?
Yeah, it's something I've never really got into, but I know that it's huge. There's a huge community, and
of really generous people as well, like in terms of sharing skills as well. So that's what first highlighted me to the amazing world of Instagram. Just because, like, the top dog of punch needle, Rose Perlman, is over in America. She just makes the most exquisite, beautiful, like, she's just amazing. And she would start liking my posts, and then followed me, and then would write really nice things. And I was just like, whoa, someone who you think's at the top of their game. And they reach out to you just because they're nice people. Really helped to spur me on. So I totally was in full-blown punch needle addiction until we went on holiday in Italy about 3 years ago. And on day 2, I got taken out by a skier from behind and broke my wrist.
On day 2.
And I was with my daughter at the time, because my husband had gone off somewhere else with some other skiers and the snowboarders in the hotel. So we'd gone out in the morning, and when I eventually managed to board down to her, once I'd been knocked over and I'd kind of got back on my board, sat down for a minute, I was like, oh no, because about 10 years before I had broken the other wrist snowboarding.
Oh God.
Which was my own fault that time. So I kind of knew, but I was in denial. And by the time I'd caught up with my daughter, who's really fast on skis, she was like, I think you've broken it. I was like, no, it's fine. She was like, I really think you've broken it. I was like, no. And then I had to go get a medic and then get skidooed off the mountain. It was quite embarrassing.
Because there's there's a photo of you just looking by, look on your face, on this snowy, beautiful snowy backdrop, just looking completely fed up with a cast around your.
Yeah, I was just like, what the hell am I going to do? Like, obviously, I'm running my own business, and it's just me who runs Doodle Love. So I was just like, what am I going to do? But it was my left hand, and I'm right-handed. So once I got that enormous cast off, because the Italians went full cast happy on that arm, I had a friend who was working freelance for me, so she came in a bit more, because she only comes in at busy times, so she came in a bit more to help me. But then I got the knack of rolling with the cast and the other hand, so it was all right. But then obviously I couldn't do punch needle, so I was like, obviously you probably will know because you draw, you just feel sometimes like a nagging itch, like a dissatisfaction with everything until you've done something creative. And I had that feeling. And then I was like, I got the cast off finally after 8 weeks and 3 different casts, because the first cast cut off the circulation in my arm.
End up without an arm.
Yeah. I was like, so with punch needle you have to use quite a lot of force holding the needle and the embroidery hoop, so it was too painful to punch needle. But I was like, I could maybe go to a painting class maybe. And we live not far from the Brewery Arts Centre in Kendal.
Okay.
And so my husband, for my birthday, bought me a 6 weeks painting course, beginner's painting course.
Yeah.
And off I went. was just like, after session 1, totally addicted. And by session 2, I think I'd shared a painting on Instagram and sold it. So my teacher was just like, what the hell?
Wow. That's the encouragement you need, isn't it?
Yeah. She was just like, she was so lovely though. She was just like I still speak to her every now and again, and she's like, I just knew from that class you were just gonna go off, do something crazy. Wow. And she always like writes really nice posts on my like Instagram posts. So thank you, Karen.
Oh gosh, because I saw like when I was looking at your paintings, and there's a lot of like quite like landscapes and quite impressionist and like colors and about texture and shade. And then it kind of, you know, of course, as you know, as you explore more and more, it kind of changes, and then there's just like this shower of faces.
I know.
Like such powerful drawings of faces. And like portraiture is so difficult to get, to get faces, not just a likeness, but for faces to look like a face, because it's all like the spaces.
Yeah.
It's really, but you just capture something so tender and raw and beautiful. Thanks,
Java.
I cannot gush enough about your work, and I feel so lucky that I think we have 2.
You've got a baby one. You've got 2, haven't you?
One, yeah, and I gave them to John for his 40th last year. Yeah, so we've got them up in the room. They're just, the baby one that we have is just, it's so beautiful. And to me, I look at that and that's both of our babies. It's,
Well, I don't think I can draw a baby one again. I go through phases and I just like, I think you've got the creme de la creme there. I don't think I can produce such magic again.
It is magic. It is an absolute, like, because it's a baby crying and it's just, and it's a charcoal drawing. It is a bit, but it's like, it's so tender and beautiful and just sweet. Things that really, it's like, yeah. So I've really loved seeing it. I find it really incredible, like, that that you have this incredible skill.
I didn't know I had it. It's so strange because I have convinced myself since, like, I could do fonts and like graphic stuff, but I couldn't draw because my older sister was always the one who could draw. She'd do amazing drawing. She'd paint murals in people's bedrooms, and she's like a really, like, to me, she's like the talented artist, and I was just always the nerdy one, like the academic nerdy one. Not in a bad way. Like, she never reinforced that. That was my own. Like, just you play roles, don't you, when you're grown up. And then painting, I love. In terms of passion, like it fills that void inside of me to express myself. So technically, I don't think I'm a brilliant painter, but I just love throwing paint around. And I wanted to get better at painting. So I thought maybe I should try and learn how to draw, because that will help with the painting, especially compositions and stuff. And then I was going to a painting class, like an 8-week painting class with Norman Long, another amazing person that came into my life and encouraged me. And that was in Preston. And one of the classes one day was to paint a portrait. And I was like, this is going to be terrible. There's no way in hell I'm going to be able to do this. Like, it's not possible. But I had a go. He was really encouraging. He said, just have a go, just copy the shapes. And as soon as he said copy the shapes, it was like a light bulb moment in my mind. And I was like, oh yeah. He's like, don't think of that as an eye. Think of that as a triangle, a semicircle, an obtuse angled rectangle or whatever. And then I could see how to build the face. And then lockdown happened, and I just drew and drew and drew every day and tried to just teach myself, like, think. To me, a face is a bit like a landscape. It's like building the shapes up. So yeah, I just kept going, and obviously, the Instagram community have just been really supportive of all of my mad tangents on my little art diary.
Yeah.
And I think I try to tell the stories of the kind of people that I'm drawing. so I, really, really interested in documentary photography.
I can see that. I can really see that. Yeah.
Yeah, so catching people unawares, like I don't want a pretty picture of somebody. But if there's a story behind their eyes, I think I'm interested. If I can connect with the story behind their eyes, then I can draw the portrait. If I can't get the eye, like I start with the eyes. And if I can't get one of them right, then I know there's no point. The drawing's not going to work out.
And and you really do, like, there is so much in the eyes of the portraits that you draw, which I kind of, when you think about it, it's that's infused with a bit of magic. That is, there's no other way of, it's something that you are putting into that. Like you said, like if you can connect, there's a connection that happens between you and the charcoal, the pencil, and the paper, or the iPad. But whatever. There's something that's really interesting because it's not just like you're drawing these perfect drawings of, there is an emotion, there is a soul in your portraits that is just mesmerizing.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I mean, because for a long time I worried they weren't like proper portraits, because they're quite messy, aren't they? Sometimes they're quite messy,
which I love.
But I love the chaos of them now. And for the first time, it's not something I have to, like, in terms of, finding your style when you start drawing or painting or learning anything, and you keep you're searching and searching and searching to find your style, your thing. And with the drawing and drawing portraits, I've not had to fight. It was just there. It's really strange. Yeah.
Wow, and it was in you. It's so, there's something so beautiful that was within you, and and it I wonder if it would have come out at a different time in your life, whether this was the right time for you to explore it and you were ready for it to happen, and to, and in a way, like you said, you had lockdown happened, and so you just drew and drew and drew, and then you had that space and that time to.
Yeah, definitely. And I was in a good place as well, because even though like lockdown was happening, I could still go to work, fortunate, because I've got my own studio. So and it's an online business, so it was a good year. But I also got to, I tried to be a kind boss to myself, so I just spend the mornings drawing at home, and then in the afternoon go to work. And it was quite nice. And because business was good, financially I felt secure. My husband wasn't able to work in his industry because he's a outdoor instructor. But fortunately, because business had been good leading up to that point, we were all right. So we were, in a much better place than a lot of people found themselves in the pandemic. And I just felt grateful. So I think that all helped to foster that space for myself, personally and like emotionally, just to kind of go, it's okay that you sat in your pajamas drawing, you're not gone to work yet, just draw.
Wow. And so, because you're saying you've exhibited, you're selling, you sell your prints, you sell your originals, and are you able to run both now? Because you kind of have two careers in some way. You have your work as an artist and your work as a graphic designer. Going forward, you're just going to carry on juggling the two?
I think so, because I have been pondering, like, would I want to be an artist full time? And I'm not sure it would work, because I feel like I'd tense up if I was solely dependent on the art, because it does depend on me feeling secure in other ways, and Doodle Love provides, a really good mental security in terms of, what I do on a day-to-day basis, and a financial security. And it's my baby, I built it up from scratch. Whereas with the art, it's a lot more, it's hard to describe, like it's more personal, it's more me, which makes me feel a bit more vulnerable about it. And I think if I felt that vulnerable on a day-to-day basis, I don't think it would be good for me. But who knows, we used to say that might not change once I get rid of the imposter syndrome, like, raise its ugly head now and again. So yeah.
Oh, well, I've enjoyed this so much.
Me too.
Yeah, I've absolutely loved hearing your story. It's absolutely fascinating and so full of joy. And like you were saying at the beginning that you are full of positivity and hope, and you kind of feel like that's what's driven you through a lot of your life, and that's really come across to me. I've really felt that, and I can really hear that in your voice. So thank you for spending.
Thank you, like, for asking me. I was like, my husband was like, "What are you doing today?" I was like, "Man, I've been asked to do an artist podcast." So I was like, what? I like did some photos last week for a top secret project, but she'll be revealed in October. So, and he was like, "So you having photos last week? You got a podcast interview this week?" I got selected, 3 pieces selected for an exhibition at a really, really, really cool gallery in Alnmouth, the Old School Gallery. Like, and that's for my portrait drawings, which is the first time they've been exhibited anywhere.
Oh my god!
You know, so that's quite exciting. And I just have to pinch myself sometimes. Like, I feel like sometimes if you don't put yourself out there, who knows, what will happen. Like, but you have to be willing to put yourself out. I think you've got to be prepared to fail, I think. Yeah. And then life surprises you.
Yes, that's a beautiful way of putting it. Yes, I love that. Wow.
So thank you for taking the time and asking me to take part. I've really enjoyed it.
I'm starstruck, Lela.
Don't be starstruck. I'm starstruck with you. Jeez.
You can find Lela on Instagram. Go to @NotUngather for her artwork and @DoodleLoveDesigns for her graphic design. Check out her website, doodlelovedesigns.com, and lelaharris.co.uk to see her incredible work. Thank you so much for listening to On the Irregular. Please make sure you review and subscribe, as it helps other listeners find us.